One is it possible to be a LGBTQ and a Christian? And sort of parallel with that is, what does the Bible say about gay and transgender people, and how do we as believers approach the subject? 2 parts.
Yeah, I think a fair way to answer that is to just clearly state what the biblical view of sexuality is, broadly speaking. And the question here is, does God have a design for our sexuality? That's the question we need an answer to. And is the Bible clear on it? Because if the Bible is clear on that, that gives us clarity on a number of kinds of questions that would follow. And I think the Bible is very clear that God did design our sexuality. The very first chapter of the Bible, the first 2 chapters of the Bible make this very plain. Genesis 1:26 through 28, it says that God made us male and female in his image. One of the key things to point out from that is right from the beginning, we get an understanding that a part of God's design was to create 2 sexes, both of them equally sharing the imago Dei. So men and women are equally valuable, and the Bible establishes this right from the beginning. Genesis 2 gives us a little bit of insight into why would there be 2 sexes, and it goes beyond simply procreation, though that is part of it for sure. You carry this on into the New Testament and go, well, what did Jesus think about this? Did Jesus have anything to say about God's design for sexuality? And he certainly does in Matthew, is it 18 or 19? It's 18, where Jesus is asked a question on divorce. And do you remember how Jesus answered it? He said, have you not read? And what does he quote? He quotes Genesis. That from the beginning, this was God's design for marriage and sexuality, that a man would leave his father and the man and the woman would be united as one flesh. What God has joined together, let no man separate. And this was God's design. So Jesus clearly believed there was a design for our sexuality, that there's something meaningful about being a man, there's something meaningful about being a woman, there's a distinctiveness, both are equally valuable, but our distinctiveness is important for our calling to have dominion over this earth. And we do well together in our differences, honoring God by having dominion over this earth. And in marriage, it's between one man and one woman, and this was the view that Jesus held. Deviations from that is sinful. It's sinful. And so I think the question was, can you be LGBTQ and a Christian? I would put it this way: can you truly and sincerely be a follower of Jesus Christ while blatantly rejecting one of the fundamental parts of his design? And I leave that as an ongoing question, because I don't think it's just a simple yes, no for any particular person. What saves us isn't our good works and our righteousness. What saves us is our faith in Jesus Christ. And over time, we are then sanctified and grow morally in obedience to Jesus Christ. So it's certainly possible that there are people that are saved because they've given their heart and their life to Jesus Christ, and now there's going to be moral development and moral progress that occurs over time. But for those that are committed to, no, I do not think, what's the way I want to say this? I would just put this as a question to someone that is committed to living in sin but thinking that they're also a follower of Jesus Christ. Those 2 things are very hard to reconcile. So whether it is sexual sin or anything else, hard-hearted rebellion against God and his ways is a sign that perhaps you've really never trusted in Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of your sins.
Yeah, I'll just add to that the culture has repeatedly said that the most important thing about you is your sexuality. And especially if you're LGBTQ, that is your identity. And I think we just have to disentangle attractions and feelings from identity. Because if your identity is fundamentally your sexuality, if you are not sexually fulfilled, then you are not a real person. And you are not a flourishing person. And no one is ever completely fulfilled in their sexuality. And so putting your identity as dependent on an activity is a dangerous mistake, and especially when you can separate an activity from an attraction as well. So I think we need to unequivocally say that those who experience same-sex attractions that do not fall within God's design, can be followers of Christ. You don't have to live that out in order to have a flourishing life. Christ says that he is enough. And I've had friends that have experienced same-sex attraction, and they've told me it is worth it to follow Jesus. They find more flourishing, more identity and purpose and meaning by following Jesus than by living out their sexual desires. So I think it's worth saying that just off the to counter that idea, because the culture again says, if you have experienced this attraction, you need to fulfill it, and anyone who disagrees with you hates you, and that's just not true. That's not true.